hungry heart.
Probably I was thinking about this. I think the first Bruce Springsteen song I probably really liked was we had the record of whatever that Christmas compilation was. Did Run Run Rudolph or no, Santa's Coming to Town on it. And that was probably like my first Springsteen song that I listened to when I was like, I guess we were still in Philadelphia, so I must have been little like kindergarten. But we listened to the Born to Run album and all that growing up. And then in high school, I got really interested in him again. A friend of mine was a really big fan, and it just like fit so well with that high school like angst of like, I gotta get out of here, I gotta grow up, I gotta start my life. It's so many of his early songs anyway are like just speak to that so well that I really connected with it there. And then once I started writing songs, then I had a whole other level of appreciation for what he does and his ability to weave a story and create characters and all of this stuff that is really different from what I do, but so interesting to me, So I think it's gone in phases for sure.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. Joining me today is a musician, a mom, and a very kind sport to join me on an early morning. How are you doing, Julia?
I'm doing good. This is not early for me, I have to say.
Yeah, I bet.
My day starts quite early, but I appreciate you being flexible with my schedule.
Oh, no problem. Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I'm a musician based out of Asheville, North Carolina right now, but originally I grew up in New Jersey, which is probably what started my introduction to Bruce Springsteen, of course.
Yeah.
And I have 2 lovely kids and my husband here as well in Asheville. What else to say? I don't know. That's a hard question for some reason.
Yeah. Well, what brought you down to from Jersey down to North Carolina?
Well, I've been living in New Orleans. I moved from New York to New Orleans and then up to Montana for a while and then back to New Orleans. But I ended up going back to school later in life to become a nurse. And so Asheville had a nursing program and it brought me here. And I just, had some friends here that had relocated from New Orleans and really appreciated the musical community here and the art history here. And also my dad's father originally is from Franklin, North Carolina, which is about an hour away.
Okay.
So a little bit of a family connection there as well.
Is there a big music community there? I know obviously there is in New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans is a wonderful music city.
Yeah, Asheville has a great music scene. It has a lot of, historically a lot of the sort of traditional like old time and like ballad singing, that the sort of history of ballad singing. I don't know how much you're familiar with that. And these songs that came over from England and Scotland and have sort of stayed part of the oral history here is really fascinating. Unfortunately, a lot of them are like murder ballads and things like that. But,
yes.
And then obviously people like Dolly Parton in Tennessee and just sort of the surrounding area and that influence. But yeah, we have a currently great like country scene here and a lot of great bands, Americana music, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a growing brand, the Americana, which is a lot of fun. I always like to start at the beginning, Julia. So growing up, what kind of music did your family listen to? Was it a very musical family?
Yeah, we always listened to music. My parents aren't musicians, but they're both visual artists.
Okay.
But my like I have aunts and uncles that are musicians as well. So live
Okay.
music was always sort of part of our like Christmases and family gatherings and things like that, playing guitar and piano. And then my parents just love music and always listen to a lot of music. And for them, it was a lot of the stuff that I guess, they connected to in college and still listen to, like, Dylan and Joni Mitchell and Bonnie Raitt and that kind of stuff, which is still, I still listen to that music and it's a big influence on my songwriting because it's just wonderful.
When did you first have that like where you wanted to create your own music? Is that something you've always known, or is that something that came upon later in your life?
I started playing music really young. I was 5 and I started playing the violin. My parents asked me what I wanted to play and I said the harp, and they said, how about the violin instead of the
Yes.
harp? So, but then I picked up guitar later. But in terms of songwriting, it's something that I like tried, but I think I always had a lot of hangups, like feeling, I don't know, just sort of imposter syndrome or overwhelmed by it, or, like, oh, this isn't something that I can do, or what do I have to say? So it wasn't really until later, like in my late 20s, that I started really letting myself play around with writing more. And part of it was living in New Orleans and having a really strong musical community there of other musicians and kind of seeing them work through the process and like, this isn't as scary as I thought it was. And it's okay if you just play around with something and maybe you don't like it, and kind of taking that perfectionism piece out of it, and making it more playful and enjoyable.
Yeah. J. Michael Stravinsky, who is a writer done a lot of different things, probably best known for writing Babylon 5. He often says, art is never finished, it's only abandoned. And I think understanding that, right? Like there's, what is it? Tom T. Hall said that I Love is the absolutely worst example because he sat down, wrote it in like 5 minutes, and then it was $1 million seller. And he goes, that's rare. That's not how songwriting works most of the time.
Totally. I've been really, there's a Chuck Close quote, and I'm going to mess it up, but it's like, amateurs wait for inspiration and artists get to work every day, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so that's my sort of newer philosophy. I feel like, especially as my life is obviously doesn't have as much free time,
Sure.
to just sort of make space for it and not, wait for like a total song download to just show up perfectly, completely written, because, sometimes you do get that and it's absolute magic, but a lot of times you don't. And if you're only ever waiting for the just complete song to show up, then, it's going to be a long time before.
Yeah. There's unreleased things or there's snippets on a lot of Brian Wilson, like the Pet Sounds and Smile sessions, where you can hear how he ended up making almost mosaics, like he had little pieces of this and then added to that and everything. So I think you're in good company by having that, not just, Bob, lightning struck and out of me immediately came, Born to Run, it's exactly. When did you, did you first discover Bruce as a child?
Yeah, my parents definitely listened to Bruce Springsteen. Probably I was thinking about this, and I think the first Bruce Springsteen song I probably really liked was we had the record of whatever that Christmas compilation was.
Yeah.
Did Run, Run, Rudolph, or no, Santa's Coming to Town on it.
Yeah.
And that was probably like my first Springsteen song that I listened to when I was like, I guess we were still in Philadelphia, so I must have been little, like kindergarten.
Sure.
But we listened to the Born to Run album and all that growing up. And then in high school, I got really interested in him again. A friend of mine was a really big fan, and it just like fit so well with that high school like angst of like, I gotta get out of here, I gotta grow up, I gotta start my life. It's so many of his early songs anyway are like just speak to that so well that I really connected with it there. And then once I started writing songs, then I had a whole other level of appreciation for what he does and his ability to weave a story and create characters and all of this stuff that is really different from what I do, but so interesting to me, So I think it's gone in phases for sure.
Yeah. Who would you say are your biggest influences as a musician?
I still think a lot of that music I grew up listening to of my parents' generation is a big part of my musical brain, people like Joni Mitchell and Bob Dylan and stuff like
Sure.
that. Definitely Springsteen. More modern Americana country type people like Gillian Welch or Lucinda Williams or Jason Isbell, all those types of folks. And then a lot of, honestly, friends, we send each other songs and we'll send each other little voice memos, and it just keeps you in the creative process. And that's always so inspiring, especially, like I get a song from a friend and I'm like, yeah, it is time that I sit down and see what I've got to say, so I can, it's almost like having a pen pal, musical pen pal.
Yeah. One of my friends, we got to be friends very early in her career as a singer-songwriter named Sarah Hickman that now lives in Austin. And she had kind of put away music till the pandemic happened. And she said similar, there was her and a bunch of other female songwriters decided to get this group together, like, okay, we're gonna write a song and we're gonna do this together and share with each other. So that nurturing helped re-spark her creativity. So I could see how that would help a lot. Talk to me, what you've got a new release out that is Springsteen covers. So how did that happen?
Speaking of pandemic projects, that was my pandemic project.
Okay.
Yeah, I we were all here at home and not playing music, and I was missing playing music, and I was just trying to think about something, going back to that idea of like not being perfectionistic about the creative process. And for a long time, I've been like talking to friends about Bruce Springsteen and how much I like his music. And a lot of my friends that, are songwriters and didn't grow up with it, like, it's almost kind of like silly to them, and I was like, these are really good songs,
Yeah.
And then we were coming back from a trip to the beach, me and my family, and I was like, what would be fun is to just like do a EP at home. I had a set up at home for just like a little mic that plugs into my computer, and like I should just do a covers EP at home, and I can send it to friends, and it can be something to play around with. And if it's no good, then I don't have to show it to anybody, but if it's gonna have it. And it was totally inspiring to think like, well, Springsteen made Nebraska with an 8-track theoretically in his bathroom. I don't know if that's a true story, but it's like you could just make really good music without having to be in a studio, necessarily. So that's how it started. And then, being able to reach out to friends and have them collaborate just became such a really special thing when I was missing playing music so much with other people. And so it was just a way to keep playing, when there were no shows.
Yeah. What I've asked this a couple of times. I've had musicians on my show, and I kind of say this with tongue in cheek, like, how do you promote a new CD when you can't tour, right? The idea is that you kind of put together, especially if you're an independent artist, you put together, you do a lot of digital work, but you have a CD, you go to a gig, you sing, and then afterwards you're, at the table signing and going, yes, I hope I sell enough CDs to get gas to the next gig. So how I talk to me about, it says that's part of the reason why you're doing this, right? Is you missed performing, you missed recording. So you're like, hey, let's just do some fun. Let's have a little fun with it.
Yeah. And, with the way that people listen to music right now, having the physical CD isn't really even as important. I think people are more interested if they're going to have something physical at this point, maybe in just getting vinyl
Yeah.
for sound quality. And, our car right now doesn't even have a CD player, which is hilarious because I can't play my own CDs in the car. For my kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's just that promoting things is a whole new world that I'm just learning how to figure out, social media and stuff like that. But it was, part of the thing that was made it fun for promoting was that it was all in collaboration with other musicians. So it was like a way to connect with them. And then, they had something that they could share as well because they miss playing music. And so that was fun. And then doing things like this and, our local radio station. And there's always ways to put it out there. And then, you never know. It's like once things are on the internet, like, I have those, they give you the metrics, for like who's listening where. And it always blows my mind. I'm like, who is listening in Norway or Japan or something to my, I'm not a big recording artist. I don't have a huge fan base at all, but somehow it finds its way to places in the world that you would never expect, which is so exciting and bizarre.
Yeah, I have the same issue that makes me happy, but I'll look and I'm like, I've had 114 downloads in Belgium. Like,
right.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
And the one-offs, what cracks me up is like, Czech Republic, one download. Like, okay, so someone in the Czech liked me enough to download one episode and then went, nah, not for me. Right.
Well, I don't think you could go too far down that rabbit hole, but I guess you're supposed to, right? Like,
right. Yeah, just to know. I just think or was someone traveling, like, did I have a regular listener that just is global trotting? So it's hilarious. How did you pick which songs you wanted to use on Jersey Girl? By the way, the EP is called Jersey Girl. It's available on Bandcamp. I will include the link in the show notes.
Speaking of promoting, I didn't even say the title of the EP.
Yeah. So, it is Julia Sanders. If you do a Google search, it'll come up on Bandcamp. How did you pick which songs you wanted to cover?
I just sort of went with my gut and picked ones that really spoke to me, and ones that I thought that I could do something a little bit different with, or that would be fun to play around with. No one needs me to be a Bruce Springsteen cover band for sure.
Right.
Not that I could be, but I'm not gonna be able to replicate his songs, but I think, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't trying to.
Yeah.
So it was really just kind of a gut decision. I mean, with maybe a couple of them, I asked the person that I was working on them with, do you have any preferences? And for Atlantic City with Kevin Fuller, the first one on there, that was his top. I was like, how about Atlantic City? He was like, yes, that's it. So, but with some of them, like Long Time Coming was just like, I love that song and I wanted to do something a little different with it. And I'm not sure that Sam was familiar with it before we recorded it, but
you ended up doing 6 versions: Atlantic City, Tougher Than the Rest, Ghost of Tom Joad, Hungry Heart, I'm on Fire, and Long Time Coming. So a very diverse group. It's a lot of fun. I've listened to the CD or the streaming multiple times. You did a great job. It's really, really well done.
Thank you. It's some big shoes to fill. Just, once you start thinking about it, you're like, oh man, I'm about to do this. Like, I'm going to play I'm on Fire. Like, you can't do I'm on Fire better than I'm on Fire, but I think it's just about having fun. And
exactly.
I hope Bruce would appreciate it. He seems like someone that really has fun playing music and is open to playing even with his own songs and how he does them. So.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about some of your other releases. You've gotten, I'm looking here at Bandcamp. So I see
On the Line is my album of original music, my first album that I put out. And that is really
River wants to talk.
Like, what did you have to say about this?
Yes. Yeah. They're, number one fan. River's like, okay, let me tell you, Jesse. Okay.
Yeah, he definitely, both of my kids were like in utero at all of these shows, like kicking away, and
yes,
been busy at recording. So they're definitely part of the process. I'm going to put you on mute actually, so I can or stop the video for a second. So I can I'll keep talking. Okay. What were you saying? Oh yeah, so On the Line, that's my premiere album of original music, and then I think on Bandcamp there's just like a single that I did for it was a compilation, like a fundraiser around the time of the election, and I just did a sort of home recording of a song that I'd written about the pandemic at the beginning of the pandemic, called How Much Longer. That's on there. And then over the past few months, I started recording a new album of originals in September of last year, and then sort of got on hold because of baby. And now we've been back doing the overdubs and doing some more studio stuff, and that's being produced by John James Torville, who's in a band called the Deslons, but is also a great producer and a friend, and super excited about that. It's a lot more of a studio type album. Whereas On the Line, we recorded live in 2 days in a friend's little church in the backyard of their house, and everything was just, getting takes and seeing what we got. And I'm really happy with it. And I love the sound of a live album like that, but just want to do something different this time around. And yeah.
What, when do you think this new album will be finished?
Gosh, well, we're wrapping up the actual recording now, and then there's all sorts of time lapse stuff with production, mixing and things like that. I'm hoping by the late summer or fall is my goal. So I think that's doable.
Sure, that sounds good. What do you want? What's next for you besides this album? What do you want to do creatively going forward?
Just keep writing, keep playing, and just kind of keep challenging myself to push a little bit more in terms of touring versus playing more local shows and getting music out there and finding creativity in different places. I mean, I think that for me, what's been both interesting and challenging as my life has changed is learning how to write in a place that's not sort of as what's the word I'm looking for? Volatile.
Yeah.
Your 20s of heartbreak and new relationships and up and downs and, big feelings. And now, this new album is a lot about, thinking about the future and about my children, about my identity as a mother and as a partner, and all of these things that are, I think, equally valuable, but don't always seem as rock and roll, and so you don't think that you're supposed to write about them, but
well, and I think Bruce is a good example, right? His songwriting and albums have changed as he's gotten older. He's talking different things, and Letter to You is very much about kind of not a final album, but a kind of reflection on where I've gone so far and where I'm headed next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And something that I really respect about him is that he's just able to get into a character and write from someone else's point of view, which, I don't know that I'll ever do that or get there, but it does seem like it really opens up the possibilities of what you can write about, because he just doesn't seem like he's very limited by his own personal experience, in that way.
That's a really interesting point, right? Because if in a lot of ways, right, how do you write a song from a different perspective and a different character and perform that? It's how do you get out of yourself and to share a story from a different perspective? But and you're always in there in some parts of it, aren't you, when you're writing?
Right. You can't be otherwise where is it coming from? But I think about I haven't gotten a chance to see Broadway show, but I did watch it when it was on Netflix for a while.
Yeah.
And I remember him talking about how, like he's never been a dock worker. He's never
Right.
been, worked at a factory, but he writes so much about that sort of like blue collar angst and all this stuff because of his dad and what he grew up with. And, it's interesting to be like, yeah, you can just put yourself in someone else's shoes, right? Authors do it all the time with books, but
Yeah.
oftentimes musicians don't access that in the same way. So.
Are there other, not necessarily Bruce, but other albums or songs, and it could be Bruce, that do speak to you, that you go to, both as an artist and as a, just a fan, that you go to often to bring you comfort or you revisit because of how they make you feel?
Gosh, that's a good question. Well, Car Wheels on a Gravel Road, the Lucinda Williams album, that one always just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Like I can just listen to that and it'll pick my mood up. Blood on the Tracks is one where I'm like, if I'm listening to a lot of Blood on the Tracks, I probably should call a friend or something. It's like, or a lot of Towns, Van Zandt, like, okay, I think it's time to go for a walk and call a friend and get some sunshine,
Yes.
I've been really loving Bonnie Raitt's first self-titled album, which is really like bluesy and sort of 70s and cool. That just always like has a really good feel to it. I don't know. Of course, I'm going to think of them now as soon as we're.
No. Those are good answers. I know. I went. One of my friends is a huge Lucinda Williams fan, and I went and saw her and just loved her. She was great. I ended up picking up the Gravel Road episode, CD, and listening to it over and over again. And just said, this is just really beautiful.
Yeah. So she's a really good storyteller also, like she can just really weave a whole scene and love her lyrics.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever seen Bruce perform live?
No, I've never seen him perform live. I would really like to. I feel like, if I could see any show, I would like to go to that, the Broadway show, because I think part of the reason I haven't, I just am not really like a big stadium musician fan. I can't. The last time I probably saw anyone in a big stadium like that was like in college, and it was Radiohead. So that's
okay.
Yeah. I like the intimacy of being in a smaller space and hearing the songs, and so I haven't had a chance to, but at some point I need to, because he puts on a very unique show from what I hear. So
right. Yeah, absolutely. How about you? What have you been able to, with the pandemic starting to kind of sort of ease off, have you been able to perform live?
Yeah, we did pretty good around here about having a lot of spaces with outdoor shows, even through the pandemic. So I was able to play a little bit, in between surges at outdoor shows. And now, my son is 3 months, so I've obviously been playing, but I'm starting to, play some shows. I did my first show back actually last week, which he came to like a trooper with his little baby headphones. And then I'm, booking for the summer and the fall right now. So it's exciting to think about getting back out there with the band and doing something that feels really
where are you planning to tour? Do you have anything lined up yet, or are you still in the process?
I'm still booking local shows for now, but definitely open to doing some more touring here, especially as I start thinking about releasing the new album, and that would be both fun and helpful to put it out there. So,
well, I'm going to throw it out there. When you're ready to promote the new album, come back and we'll visit about that. We'll talk about the process, and we'll share a couple of tracks, and we'll help promote it. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Good. Well, what else? Is there something else I should have asked you that I haven't?
music related in general, or Springsteen?
Just, yes, anything. Just, I always, and the reason why I always ask this question is I had a guy on years ago, and at the end of the episode, I hit, end, and I said, "Hey, thank you for joining me," and everything. He goes, "Okay, next time I need to tell you when I got drunk with the E Street Band."
What? You can't just drop that at the end of the podcast.
Exactly right. So,
Oh
so anyway, just in case, Julia, that you and Patty, exchange cooking recipes, I wanted to make sure give you that opportunity.
I would love to hang out with Patty.
Absolutely, that is hilarious. All right, so Jersey Girl, is Bandcamp the best way to get your music?
Yeah, that's the best way, because you can either download it. I mean, you can stream through all the streaming platforms. It's on Spotify and Apple Music and, all those things. But, we don't really make any money off of that. And
right.
So if you want to support, you're welcome to listen to it any way you want to. But if you want a physical copy, definitely download the album either as a, digital album through Bandcamp, or I do have physical CDs on there for both my album On the Line and for the EP Jersey Girl, and I can ship with some fun stickers.
Well, good. Well, and I always recommend everyone, and I know I'm not alone in this. If you're streaming something and you enjoy it, find a way to kick a few bucks toward the artist. It is a very different business model nowadays. Totally. And so many, there is a lot of beauty to be able to, let me go check. I heard you, Jesse, talking to Julia Sanders, so I should go check out her music. And I loved it, but that gets you maybe a penny, maybe, right? So, yeah, it's always good if you can kick a few bucks toward the artist. So please check that out.
Yeah. And check out all the great, there's a bunch of artists on Jersey Girl that are all amazing as well. Erica Lewis is on there singing, and she has a new album coming out. Gold Rose is a local band from Asheville. Esther Rose is the Americana country rock musician. Yeah. So yeah, go ahead and click. I think they're all linked there too. So
they are. And what I loved is that really, this was a group project. I think Tom Joad is the only thing where on the credits there isn't another artist listed.
Mm-hmm. And that's just I'm looking at. Yeah, well, those musicians are just on a bunch of different bands, but not all of them are necessarily on Bandcamp. But
right.
Actually, a couple of them are in a band here. One of them is in a band called Life Like Water. That's wonderful. And then a couple of the girls are in a band as well here. So it's just that the way that it formatted was. Yeah. They didn't have full band backing, so we
Well, Julia, this has been a blast. I love that I got to spend time with you and River. Before I let you go, I always end my show with the Mary question. So Jay Armstrong, who is an honors English teacher, recently retired, back when he was teaching, he would spend 2 days in his class breaking apart Thunder Road for his students. They would discuss the imagery that Bruce uses for the lyrics. They would talk about the themes of the song. They would compare it to other American poets like Robert Frost. And then at the end of the 2 days, he asked the question, does Mary get in the car? So Julia Sanders, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
I gotta say, I want to take this class. I want to take this class, or at least just like the notes. We need them online or something, because
I will send you the link. He was on my show probably 4 or 5 years ago, and he did a abbreviated version of that. So I will send you the link to the episode. Yes.
Because I really went down a rabbit hole with this. Maybe I overthought it, but I was like, just kind of in it, thinking because you had asked me obviously to plan ahead of time. I'd never actually considered this question before, which is funny. And I've listened to this song, I don't even know how many times,
Right.
And maybe just because as a musician, the way my brain works, like the things that always stuck out with me so much were just like the structure of the song and how unusual it is. And, it's like prose, and there's no chorus, verse, chorus, or anything like that. And it's got that big instrumental at the end. Anyway, so that's always what I noticed about it. I never really thought about what Mary was doing, And I kind of think it doesn't matter, like a little bit. Like, I think the whole point of the song, right, is like the asking and the question and the feeling from his point of view and not what she does. But I don't know. My first instinct is, if Bruce Springsteen asked you to get in the car, you should probably get in the car.
Right.
And the end is just so like epic and joyous, that instrumental, it kind of feels like if she didn't, that would be more of a bummer at the end. Would have like faded out,
So Julia, you've brought up a couple of things that I want to address, because one, you're the second person this week that have said, well, maybe the whole point of the song is we don't know if she gets to the car or not, right? That is the purpose of the song. And I love that ending. I do. The other thing is I had a guy on who said it depends. He said if it's the E Street Band doing Thunder Road, she absolutely gets in the car because of that majestic ending. If it's Bruce doing it solo, she doesn't, because at the end he's kind of melancholy and he's like na 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 na, and he's driving off by himself. So good call on that. Great answer. And I feel the exact same way. When Jay was on the first episode, he talked about this, and I said, wait a minute, that's even a thing? Of course she gets to the car. And then we started talking about it. So that's the reason why I end every episode with it, because I always get a fun answer and I get a good discussion from my guests.
Although I will say, going back and listening to it, then he's all, you're not a beauty.
Yeah.
There's a price to pay if you get in the car. And I'm like, I don't know, man, maybe this guy's kind of a creep and you shouldn't get in the car, Mary. So
I will send you two things. I will send you a link to the couple of episodes where Jay's been on there and we talked about it. He was on, we discussed it. Then a few years later, I took about 50 answers and all spliced them together, sent them to Jay. And then he came on and, like, what did I start? And he listened to everyone's answers, and we kind of did an analysis of that. And then I will send you the notes. I had another podcaster, Bex, on the phone, and she had never heard the song. She didn't listen to the song. She just pulled up the lyrics.
Oh, wow.
And she said, if she gets the car, he's going to kill her. Oh my God. And so I will send you her notes about how it is hilarious that this whole perspective of, that many Springsteen fans think of this, one of his most great epics. And she's just like, no, he's crazy. Don't get in.
Just putting you down the whole song. But then it's like, get in the car.
Yeah. Hey, that's great. Well, you and River have a great day. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah,
if someone wants to reach you, what's the best way?
I have a contact on my Bandcamp page, but also just Julia Sanders Band at Gmail. It's an easy way to contact me and easy to remember.
All right. That sounds great. All right. You also, you have an official Facebook page.
I do.
So everyone go like that. Please go to Bandcamp, download the CD, send a few bucks to get a physical copy if that's your thing. And Julia, thank you so much.
Follow. That helps in its own way too.
Yes, it does. All right. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, listeners. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Sky goes on endlessly. Great days to come and go with me. Try to shake this feeling that I'm nothing, and it's nothing like New Orleans. Need a friend to call my own, reaching through the telephone. Call you just to hear you say nothing, and it's nothing like New Orleans.
I want and need your feedback. You can reach me multiple ways to tell me what you like or don't like about the show. You can reach out to give me guest suggestions or maybe to join me on the podcast yourself. We're on Twitter at SetListingBruce or at Jesse Jackson DFW. I have an Instagram, SetListingBruce or Jesse Jackson DFW. Our Facebook page, facebook.com/setlistingbruce. Go to patreon.com/setlistingbruce to find out how you can support the show, and we have several tiers of support. Please go to your favorite podcast player and hit subscribe. And tell a friend about the podcast because that is the way we're going to grow. If you're not tired of hearing me speak, you can hear me on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where Charles Skaggs and I talk all things Doctor Who. The How Many podcast, where me and my friends Gary, Scott, Bob, and Jr. talk pop culture. And finally, my newest podcast, The Last Best Hope for Conversation, a Babylon 5 podcast, where Karen, Lou, and I are going through the TV show Babylon 5 one episode at a time. I am always looking for guests, so please reach out to me, setlistingbruce@gmail.com.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.